You're listening to Breakaway Wealth, the show designed to help you build wealth faster, think bigger, and break out of the herd. Now, here's your host, Jim Oliver. Before we jump into today's show, we have some exciting news to share with you. Our brand new online community platform is now live. Get access to free on-demand, in-depth training courses on topics like infinite banking, cryptocurrency, real estate investing, and much more. Just go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com, or check out the show notes of this episode to find the direct link to request to join the community. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, my good friend, Jeremiah Broz. Jeremiah, welcome, brother.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. And you know what? I've been thinking about having you on this podcast for a long time, talking to Tanner a few times about it. And when I looked at my calendar today, and full disclosure, I looked at it first thing this morning. I said, oh man, Jeremiah is going to be on here. Cool. I'm looking forward to this. And I know it's early where you're at, so I appreciate you getting up early and being on the show. And so to kick us off, Jeremiah, before we make this legendary, tell me a little bit about you, or tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're doing and what you've done.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. This is an honor and a pleasure. A little bit about me. I would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. And as I've kind of said before, I'm no stranger to failure. I feel like in a lot of facets in my life, right, I've experienced some failure and isolation and, kind of get your teeth kicked in. And then in most facets, right, pretty much all facets, I picked myself back up and then gone after and fight again. So if there's one thing that I feel like is probably unique in my strain, maybe it's just the tenacity and the willingness to survive and keep on going. Yeah, I'm a father of two. Like, it's one of my proudest accomplishments, I feel like, thus far. Got two teenage girls. Kind of, you can see them back here, right? They're my little buddies.
How old are they?
17 and 15.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're getting to that age now where it's like I'm not as cool as I guess I once was, but I'm more of like an ATM and a Uber driver now. That's, I guess, my new job.
I get it, man. I get it. So where'd that entrepreneurship come from?
Yeah. So my whole life, like, my parents were 9-to-5ers, blue collar workers at best. And so my whole life, it's always been driven into just work hard, put in a lot of hours. When I was 13 years old, I started in a scrap yard with my father in South Minneapolis. My hours were 4 to 4, right? And I don't know if there's any other 13-year-olds out there, but that job sucks. And I would go down to the scrap yard and paint giant lugger buckets in 102-degree weather back there with my Dickies and my little cutoff T-shirt. And what I learned was, I realized I don't want to work in a scrapyard. So that was probably one of the very first lessons I really learned. And then when I went to college, my first job, my job after high school was working for a masonry company. I was a laborer, again, 14-hour days, humping block, mixing mud, running buggies down, right? Everybody else quit except for me. I was the only laborer to make it through, right, out of 14 other laborers. And in a very kind of grungy, pit, such as working in a masonry, like, you are the bottom of the totem pole. So not only is it physically demanding, it is emotionally demanding as well. But then that next fall, somebody asked me if I wanted to run a painting business, or actually work for them, for this company called College Pro Painters. They saw my work ethic. They knew I was a workhorse. They wanted me to manage one of their crews. And I was like, well, I made $7,000, right, the summer before. And way back then in 1999, that was a lot of money. And then he was like, well, maybe you should be interested in running one of these franchises. And at the time, I was like, I was like a McDonald's? I'm like, I don't have any money. How do you run
Yeah.
a business? And then I went in and I interviewed, and they kind of showed me like how they'll cash flow everything, how I could have an opportunity to manage people, manage all the marketing, get out there and sell, do kind of explore all these avenues of what it takes to run a
Yeah.
business without really kind of sacrificing everything on the line. And that first opportunity really changed my life with College Pro Painters. So I
You
ran
know,
this. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I
Keep
was going to
going.
say I ran this business. Right, I was a 19-year-old kid, 20, and then turning 20. Ran this business. That summer, I made $27,000, which was like 4 times the amount. And I told myself, I'm never going back. I was like, business ownership is for the birds. It's not for me. It's way too hard. And then by
Yeah.
October, I was looking at my bank account and I was like, okay, I'm coming back. And then I broke and ran the biggest business at the time.
Yeah. You know what? Here's what I love about what you said. You said something about persistence. And so I want to just read one of my favorite quotes. And I used to have this on when I actually had an office and a desk and everything. I had this on either on my wall or on my desk throughout the years. But it's from Calvin Coolidge. And a lot of people have heard it. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it. But I just love reading it. I wish I should read it every day. But he says, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. You got to remember, it's Calvin Coolidge, ladies. He wrote it a long time ago. So genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan press on has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race.
Hmm,
And
that's
it's one of
awesome.
my favorite quotes, Jeremiah, because you know what, man? It's just keep going, right? It's just keep going. The other thing that I love about what you just said, and for people in the audience that haven't heard this story, but I worked in a casket factory when I was 13 years old swinging a hammer. Uh, Similar to hard labor, right? I also did roofing when I got in trouble and had to do community service in high school and college because I got in trouble a lot. And and so I've been I've done all of those things, but swinging that hammer at 13 years old for 8 hours a day, and I didn't do it as long as like you were working, but I got to where I was like, I will not do this all day long. And I saw the owner of the business. He'd come in for an hour or two. He lived up in Palos Verdes, which was like it might as well have been Bel Air or Beverly Hills to me. That was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. How do people do it, right? It drove me to try to figure it out. So,
Right.
and when I thought about being an owner, we have a lot in common with this. The first time that I was made partner in my financial planning firm, I got my check and I said, well, wait a minute, what happened? Well, you wanted to be an owner. Now you just get a percentage of the profits. So, well, what happened to I had like a salary, I had this and this and this. And they said, no, you don't have that anymore. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm dumb. What? Well, I want to go back to what I was doing. I was making more money in the
Yeah.
beginning. So sometimes you got to take care of the beginning to get it in the end, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My company now, Energy Advantage Roofing and Solar, I brought in a partner, Takuya. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the first things, and Takuya and I have known each other for 20 plus years,
Yeah.
right? Way back in the day with College Pro Painters, actually. And one of the first things he said, you have to come off salary. And he said, as the owner, you will go out and sell and you will get the same commissions as every other salesperson. And you will lead the front end and you will be the chief revenue officer and you will live or die by the sword. By your
Yeah.
efforts, you will live or die.
Yep.
Right. And at first, I was kind of like, oh man, I mean, okay. I kind of built up this shell, right? Where other organisms and people and things can bring in revenue and money, and I can kind of manage it from my ivory tower, right? Up there in
Yep.
Bel Air. But then
Yep. Yeah.
I gave him full financial control. I trusted him and I trust him today. And I said, okay, I went out that year, sold 3.2 million. right? And then this last year sold 4.1 million. We just covered
Wow.
over 14 million in revenue. Coming from when he came on, we were at 3.1 as a business,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So
Wow.
that exponential growth really kind of started from this understanding of us is like, hey, if we're going to be owners, right, and we're going to have skin in the game, like get out there and hunt and do what you do best.
I love that. One of the things that create tailwind, and this because you've worked with us, is I always think that too. I'm not just creating content and managing people and number one, I don't want to do that. I want to be working with our clients. And so I do that every day. And when I don't do it, I'm not very happy because I want to interact and I want to solve. And one of the ways that I've bought companies is I'm working with somebody and helping them learn infinite banking, or way back in the day, helping them with full service financial planning, these blue collar, because that's where I came from, blue collar small business owners, family owned businesses that I related to. Like, hey, you got a welding shop. Some of the guys in the office, and they've got the right watch and they've got the right shoes and they got the right tie, and they would go by that welding shop and never look twice. Yeah. I saw that gold nugget. I saw that diamond in the rough, the acres of diamonds. I was like, wait a minute. All these guys are making more money than the doctors and the lawyers and the accountants. I want to work with them. Those are my people. Well, when you work with them, they just want to know what to do. They want to solve a problem, right? When you go out and you work with the customer, they want to solve a problem. They want you to come up with the plan and say, hey, let me educate you on how we're going to make this look amazing, right? Whatever it is. Hey, your future, your building, your whatever it is. And so like, I love that you said that, because that's how I am too. I'm not training somebody else how to do this. I'll just show you how to do it. And then doctors that are on their own, they would say basically eat what you kill, right? Like, yeah. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And sometimes if people maybe take that the wrong way, but what I mean is everything should be on commission. I mean, everybody should be based on results. And to some degree, even our office managers, they have opportunity to go out and build their own clientele, to have something bigger. So I love that because when you think I can just sit back and rest and everybody else will do all the work, guess what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a house of cards, right? If there's one, like, and you've probably heard this before, but I've been broke 3 times in my 30s. Right now I'm 43. Yeah. And broke is in like from bankruptcy, divorce, like literally starting over. The last business venture, I was cut off and I had 30 days to figure out $3,000 in rent, right? With nothing in the account and no credit card bill. So one thing I've always, but I never really freaked out. And at the time, my girls were really little at the time, 7 and 8. So I have these responsibilities more than myself to not fold. And I just get out and knock doors. I'll just get out and knock doors, and I'll just get out and I'll do it again. And kind of what happens is, like, as the leader, when you don't have a house built of cards and you can get out there and in our world, right, the fundamental basic of the marketing and sales and roofing and solar is knock doors. For all the owners out there, knock doors. And actually even in the financial institutions, right, some of them would knock doors. Edward Jones, I think, knocks doors. I've seen realtors knock doors, right? So like, eat what you kill, having that faith and that belief in yourself that you will persevere no matter what, right? It's a really calming effect that I wish all business owners could have.
So I love what you said about that with the roofing. Okay. And so as a lot of people know on the show, September of 2022, my house was damaged, 155 mile an hour winds. Water came in. We got water in the house. We had to move out for 7 months. And, my insurance company came out and said my roof is good. I had a roofing company come out. They didn't really even get up there. But I had this guy down the street and he said, hey, there's an independent roofing, appraiser. I don't know what he was, right?
Yeah,
and he inspector. That's what he was. And so he came by my house, and Jim, there was actually some damage to this and this and this. And I showed it to my insurance company. They're actually working with me, right? Now I said, well, how'd you meet this guy? He said he knocked on my door. That's what made me think of it. So now he refers him to me, right? He's coming out next week. Now I don't know if I have damage. I mean, if I do, then thank God this guy knocked on the door of my friend that now is coming to me. because
Yeah.
I tell people too, it's knocking on doors, but then when you do a good job for people, people knock on the door for you, right? I never ask anybody for a referral, but we get so many referrals that from our clients because our clients are out talking about infinite banking and they say, "Hey, I'm doing this and this and that." They go, "What are you talking about?" Hey,
Yeah.
you got to talk to Tanner, you got to talk to Jim, you got to, like to, and have them explain this to you, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And I think we have a lot of similarities there as well. You know, that I was thinking about when you grow up and you don't have means, when you fail, you have to figure something out, right?
Right.
And Tony Robbins says you're motivated by two things: pain and pleasure.
Yeah.
Pain, like when you say, "Hey, I got to pay that rent," or "I don't know what we're going to do," right? That will motivate you, focus you. You're not tired. Like there's nothing that's going to stop you, right? You're not, hitting the snooze button, anything like that. You got to get up and go. So, um,
Yeah.
I was recently rereading the 38 letters that John Rockefeller or JD Rockefeller wrote to his son John. And if anybody hasn't read that book, it's literally 38 letters giving his son advice. Because back in the day, in 1900 or 1912, whenever the span of these books or these letters, and he says he says to him, he lost $1 million. Now think about that.
Mm.
In 1900, $1 million. By the way, in 1900, if you had $1 million, it'd be like having, I don't even know what today, but I think the dollar's lost like 97% of its value over this amount of time or more. So
Wow.
it would be all the money that you would ever need in your life, right? If you just had a normal lifestyle. But he says, don't fear. You lost this money. I'm going to show you how to get it back, right? You got to pay me back, because he borrowed the money, just like infinite banking. He borrowed the money from the family because JD Rockefeller would say, "Hey, I am the bank," right? But he would loan money to the family and they had to pay it back, right?
Yeah.
Now, and this is where I'm going with this, because I want to, there's a question coming here, Jeremiah, is when JD Rockefeller was a poor kid, right? He envisioned that he would be the richest man in the world. He made that goal when he was dirt poor. Now, I didn't when I was that age, but tell me a goal or a vision or a dream when you're 13 years old, or you're working, or before or after that, when you just like you just said, "I'm going to have that," and you have it now.
Yeah. When I was really young, when I was a kid, I always envisioned myself as a father. There was so it's almost like there was two visions. One, we didn't grow up rich, right? Like I said, my dad worked in a scrapyard. My mom worked for Prudential Insurance until she had my younger sister, and then she was just a stay at home mom, which is a very tough job in itself. But income wise, right, we're a one income family. Um, but growing up, I always knew, like, I wanted to meet someone, and I wanted to be a father, and I wanted, maybe to have somebody that would just listen to me. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
wanted to be an instructional, like, loving, nurturing father. That was really important. So that's probably why I like, having my daughters, and it takes paramount in my life. And at one point in my life, I almost lost them, like, completely, right? Um, but then the other side is I wanted enough money to not struggle and not have these concerns and worries and doubts and work so hard. And I thought by having money and security and having these things, maybe I could not work. Life would be easier. Life would be more enjoyable. And I don't know, like, smoke pot and play video games or whatever kids do these days when they don't work.
What
But then
billionaires kids do. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, right.
Maybe, I
uh,
don't know.
but then I realized, like, that tension will never go away. That tension is actually probably an essence of who I am. Even if I had enough money to be for me to be comfortable, my kids to be comfortable, my grandkids, right? Open up my own bank, have these goals created. I think I'll always still have this tension to create, this tension to provide, right? This tension to have courage and get out there, and when everything's broken, to get out there and try and fix. Um, and I realized that'll never go away.
I love that you said that. because to me that comes back to a little bit about what we talk about with infinite banking and retirement. Like, and you have like people, and I love people that are in their 20s right now, because they're like, hey, this retirement thing, that doesn't sound like something I want to do. Work 20, 30, 40 years and then turn off the spigot, and then I hope that I don't run out of money. Like they're learning that doesn't work, right? And retirement, the Nelson Nash, a great mentor of mine, and
Yeah.
always said to me, uh, the definition of retirement is to be taken out of service. So what you're talking about is we want to be in service to our family. I grew up without a family, without a mom, without a dad, and I wanted to have a family. Now, I've apologized to my older kids more than I can count, because I don't know how the hell I was supposed to be a good father in my 20s. I had kids at 22 and 23, Irish twins. I mean, I didn't know how to be a parent. I just was there. Okay. Maybe they wished I wouldn't have been there sometimes, but I was there. Right.
Right.
And I wasn't going anywhere. But the thing is that what you learn through divorce, through custody battles and everything else is, hey, you just do the best that you can do. And you fail all the time and you try to get up and you do better, just like you said, with persistence. But having that commitment to doing more. I'm 58 years old, Jeremiah. I'm not retiring. My resignation will be in my obituary. That's how you'll know when I'm not coming to work tomorrow. And I love that. I want to be 95 years old and be talking to guys like you and young guys. I mean, can you imagine, when I'm 95, you'll be 80 or something like that, or maybe a little bit younger. But I mean, like, I hope we're impacting 20-year-olds, right? I want to hire the guy that brings the Uber Eats sometime and go, dude, you want an opportunity? Let me give you an opportunity. Are you going to take it or you're not going to take it? Right? That's what I'm about now. Like, it's not just about feeding my ego, I want to make them change their lives. I want them to 10X. And you said something about your business and bringing T on, and if you want to 2X your business, then just work harder.
Yep.
If you want to 10X your business, you got to redo things. 2X is linear, right? I just put in more hours. I'll just work harder. I just won't sleep as much. 10X is like, well, I can't work 10 times harder. So what am I going to do? This is all in Dan Sullivan's book, 10X is easier than 2X. And so I didn't create any of this stuff. I'm not that smart. But he says you have to rethink everything about your business. And that's what you did. That's how good business owners work, man. That's how you keep going up the mountain. So Congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
So yeah, no, you're welcome. I mean, I think I could talk about just what you're doing. What advice, this isn't the last question, by the way, but what advice do you give to your friends? Because you got to have friends that are working 9 to 5s. I mean, it's kind of like the richest man in Babylon, right? They're like, wait a minute, Jeremiah, you got all this stuff that we want. We're about the same age. I mean, you didn't come from money. You like, why do you have all this and we don't? What do you tell them?
Yeah. Well, it always looks better from the outside in. I think social media like helped that. So in being probably most transparent as possible, I mentor a lot of younger individuals too. But building assets, right? Building assets. I mean, Kiyosaki talks about it, and building assets where you can have um, uh, this residual income, right? In case something were to happen, as like an insurance policy. One great thing. My first house I bought, I was 21 years old, and they made payments toward it, paid it down, but then I gifted it towards my younger sister when she got married, right? So she can have, and then they took over. There's like 80 grand left in the loan, something like that. Paid it off. Now they have this asset, this thing, right? In their young 30s, totally paid off, building a family, and now they can use that as leverage. So for anybody working the 9 to 5, and what's interesting is like the last time I was broke, I was 36 years old, like flat broke, like college student broke. Okay. So kind of as hard as I've worked from all the way around, right? Somebody who just maybe didn't do anything in those 14, 15 years, we kind of met at the same juxtaposition. now I had a vast world of knowledge, because when you go broke multiple times and you build yourself back up, the last time you're broke, this probably isn't the last time, but I keep taking shots for the moon because that's all I know how to do.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that you go from that 2x work hard mentality to what the 10x isn't about compounding money right now. Matter of fact, for us to grow from 3 million to 14 million, we're actually we go through a downward spiral, right? Of chaos and losing money and taking risks and turnover. But that's the only way we're going to get to 25 million next year, right? We have to really kind of double down and hunker and try different things and see what's kind of our best opportunities. But the fun actually is in building something with people you love.
Yeah.
Right? The money will come, but that's the fun piece of it. And that piece only really kind of came to me after going broke, after rebuilding, and after really taking a hard look in the mirror. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, especially when I crossed 40, there's been many times I'm like, maybe I should get a job.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm not an entrepreneur that I thought I was, and I don't know if you've had the same feelings, but we kind of have that doubt that creeps
Nobody
in.
would ever hire me, so I couldn't have that feeling.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So it, so I would say, like, tuck your money right now, building some assets. Assets can kind of give you the freedom, the discipline to have that. Right. And then you don't have to necessarily run a business or build a business, but I think people start to die when their curiosity starts to go away. That curiosity piece. Am I meant for this? Am I passionate about this? Could I do this better than other people around me? Jim Collins, I think, talks about the hedgehog concept, right? And good to great. What you're
Yeah.
innately good at, what you're passionate about, and what's an economic vehicle. I think everybody should always think about that, no matter how they're bringing in revenue and what they're doing, and encourage that for our children, because that can kind of bring out some talent and some gifts that could change the world.
Yeah.
And that's real
Yeah.
winner, right?
No, I love that. It's funny because, you've talked about a few books, and right before the show, and I want to share this, I said I wanted to touch on this, is you have a passion for reading and you read every morning. And when again, I was a kid, I grew up, my adopted mother had a 4th grade education. My adopted father had a 9th grade education. Nobody ever said, hey, do your homework, read a book. And I was rebellious. I was a solid low D student because I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. Right. I had a chip on my shoulder the size of a boulder. And I was like, screw you. In fact, in 8th grade, I got straight Fs just because I wanted to show my teachers I could get straight Fs. Right. I was going to do nothing. Right. So anyway, my point to that is, and this is where the message sometimes comes from, but I was running the Gold's Gyms in Kansas City, the one that was in Mission. And the guy that was the janitor, we went and had coffee. And he said, if you read an hour a day, now he was getting into MLM, multi-level marketing with Amway. I'm like, dude, you don't want to talk to me about Amway. I don't have any money. Right. And I didn't think I did. I was starting to make money running the gyms. But he said, Jim, if you read an hour a day on any subject, in 6 weeks, you'll know more about that subject than 95% of the world. Now, again, I don't want to be told what to do, but 6 weeks? If somebody said, hey, Jim, if you just don't have one beer for 6 weeks, you'll have abs. Guess what? I'm not drinking a beer. Right?
Yeah.
Because I want abs, right? At 58 years old. So that one thing, like, for whatever reason, lit a fire in me to become a reader, which I was not. So share with the audience your kind of experience with reading and how it's kind of made a difference in your life.
Yeah. Growing up, I think I had horrible study habits, and reading was like a curse to me. I hated it. So I avoided it. I got by on life on my good looks and and charm. Just kidding. And then I realized my looks start to fade.
I was nodding my head.
But it was as I was probably approaching 40, right? And I'm like, the only thing that's really going to be of value, I think, to people in my life is actually my brain, my studious for knowledge. And then because I had a rich life, right? I had a rich life with experience, but I didn't have a deep knowledge base of discipline of knowledge base. And so somebody once told me that wisdom is knowledge put into working experience, and you need the two combined to be a wise person. And just as I wanted to be a wise father, right? I wanted to be a wise mentor, and I wanted to be a wise person that was giving advice based on experiences and the discipline and education, right? So that was kind of the motivation for me just now to read every morning. And now, wake up between 4:30 and 5 every morning. And the first thing I do is read for 35, 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Just a minimum of at least 10 to 15 pages. I don't have to, dive deep in multiple hours, but between that, little workout, little prayers, right? Meditation, boom. And then I get all that out of the way before 6:30, 7 o'clock. Right?
And you're ready to go. So there's a couple of things that I like about that. One, when I was a kid, one of the reasons I didn't read is I could read 5 pages and I was so ADHD that I had no idea what I just read. So it didn't seem like it was even worth reading to me because I didn't comprehend what the hell I just read.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, well, that's just a waste of time. I could read the whole book. I don't even know what it's going to say. So somewhere along the line, somebody taught me this is I would write down questions on the stuff that I was reading. Maybe every paragraph, maybe every page, maybe every couple, maybe every 10 pages, but I would write down a question. That helped me retain the knowledge of what I was reading. But then somebody else said, well, you ought to send those questions to the author if it's not answered later in the book. So then you go back through and you figure out, hey, these 10 questions, I didn't get the answer to. And so you send it to the author. Like today, you could do it in an email. I did that with the Go Giver and Bob Berg. And he emailed me back and we had Bob Berg on the show. And is that little technique. And again, I didn't create any of this stuff. I'm not that smart. Remember, solid 1.2, 1.3 student. But I learned from that. And it was like, wow, now I have a relationship with Bob Berg and he's a lot smarter than me. So, people would always talk about how dumb Ford was building, and how he was just not a very smart person. But he had lots of smart people around him, right? So I think, well, I hope I'm not that dumb, but I want to have smart people around me. And how do I do it? I engage them. Guess what? They want to share, just like you want to share with young people on how to be an entrepreneur and business owner and everything else. Those people want to share too. So that's one thing. The other thing is that routine in the morning. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's vital. And when everything's going good in my life, I get up just like you, 5 o'clock in the morning. I have a group of guys that we do a devotional on YouVersion, which is like Bible study. And then we all comment. If I do that first thing in the morning, then I read, then I go work out. And then and I take Riley to school, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm good to go, man. Like I'm ready to go to battle. There's not much that can ding me. Nothing can happen to where I'm in the fetal position on my couch for the rest of the day, right? Nothing.
Right.
And those positive affirmations too. Those positive, like you just said, those two things and I was shaking my head. You said on my good looks and my charm. Those are positive affirmations. And I kind of have a sneak peek into how you're going to answer this last book, but I want to talk about when I ask you about the book, but I want to talk about those positive affirmations because that's important too. And I used to think it was hokey voodoo crap, but it's not. Okay. So my people always tell me to go to like 25 minutes. So we're approaching 35 minutes because I think I can talk to you about this stuff all day long, Jeremiah. Yeah. But along the way, either your parents, mentors, your teachers, your coaches, somebody must have given you some great advice. So what's the best advice anybody ever gave you?
The best advice anybody ever gave me was, there's been a lot. But I remember Steve Rogers, our old CEO of the company who owned College Pro Painters, right? It's called First Service Corporation, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. Him and I were just talking once, I think, over a beer in Canada, and he said, and I was talking about investments, and he's like, if you ever want to know how money works, he said, invest your own money. He's like, chase your own money and manage your own investments and chase the dollar. Follow it all the way
Yeah.
down to the end. And anytime I've wanted to figure out my finances, right? Or anytime I've let the finances go to another person in a business, it kind of fluttered away. And then when I pick it back up, and I always chase it all the way down to the end. So follow a buck.
That's great advice.
And if you want to make,
I kind of think of it like this: is Nelson always used to say, "Whoever controls the money makes the money," right?
Yep.
And what you're basically saying is sometimes we can get lazy. The more money we make and everything else, we can say, "Hey, on this crypto thing, if I just give you some money, will you just go do it?" And then when there's a correction or something, or they make a mistake, you go, "Well, hey, what did you do?" Because it's human nature that we don't want to take responsibility. We want somebody else to take responsibility. But as soon as because we don't have confidence in ourselves, once we have confidence in ourselves to say, "Hey, I'm going to figure out how that money works. I'm going to figure out how this works." And that's one thing that I've noticed about you over the time that I've known you is you just kind of figure things out how they work. Right. Which I love, man. And because I do the same thing. I'm kind of getting into watches just a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
But I know how guys go and buy a $20,000 watch for $8,000 and they sell it for 15 and somebody thinks they got the greatest deal in the world. Or, I haven't got into a $100,000 watch, or Tom Brady at the roast shows up in a $500,000 watch. But I sit there and I think some young guy out there delivering pizzas in about a month's time of studying can understand that game. Yeah. And they can start making offers. "Hey, I'll give you $8,000 for that watch. It's worth 20. I know, but I'll give you 8 right now today." Right? It's the same way in real estate. It's the same way in business. It's the same way in everything. You got to hustle, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about this book a little bit. So and normally I don't know the book that somebody's going to say, but Jeremiah shared a little bit. So if God came down from heaven, Jeremiah, and only allowed you to retain the knowledge from one book that you've read, what would that book be?
Well, okay. So we've talked about the one book, and I think there's great principles, but I don't know if anybody's ever read the latest one, but it's Outwitting the Devil.
I love, you're the second person this week.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yes. So You know what that says to me in my belief system? God's saying, "Jim, you need to go read Outwitting the Devil." Again, because I have read it, but you know what this guy said? Yeah. I've never listened to it on Audible. And look, here's my proof, okay? If I can make this work. On my what's it called?
This book came out in like 1938 or 42 or something, and it wasn't released until 2011.
Right.
Because it was so taboo.
Yeah. So I went, so he said somehow Outwitting the Devil on Audible. So, just so anybody can see it.
Yeah.
Right. I went and got it. See, it says play. It doesn't say purchase. It says play. and he said, it's really good on Audible. And I said, "Hey, I've never listened to it on Audible." Yeah. And again, I need a lot of input to retain the knowledge from these things. So I'll read it, listen to it, watch it, whatever I got to do, right, to get it. So I love that. So tell me why that book.
Yeah. So Napoleon Hill is Outwitting the Devil. So just to give you context of the book, right? He's interviewing the devil, and it's this pseudo interview way back. I don't even know exactly when it was published, right? But it was like 1938 or 1942. And he's talking about these ways that people get off course. And when you get off course, right, then that's how the devil gets you, or that's how you're not being original. You're not being authentic. And then they'll get you through even further anchors like drugs and alcohol and, gambling and all these things, right? And then for me, at the time I read it the first time, I thought about it, and then I reflected about all the things that I was doing in my life that was pulling me off my path and off what my course was. And then I reflected about some of the insecurities I had on, am I righteous? Am I valued enough have a righteous course, right? And then I dug into the details and I put a pen to paper and I just started writing about what is my value to the world. Given my experiences, given what I've been through, right? Given the education I'm putting myself through, what is my value to the world, right? And some of these births have started to form now in our company in Energy Advantage. And we've created jobs and we're changing the structure of how restoration works, how renewable energy works, right? We're formulating this plan that nobody else is doing. Nobody else is doing. And whether we make money or we don't make money, there will be change, right? That's going to affect our children in a very positive way. And so that certainty derived from this realization, this book. I got to stay on this path.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think the audience, I definitely got I see where your girls are a driving force, family's a driving force for you, and being of service, but making the world a little better than it was, before you were here. And that's cool and commendable, Jeremiah. Jeremiah, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it?
Shoot me an email, jeremiah@yourenergyadvantage.com, or you can reach out to me on either Instagram, whatever kids are doing these days.
We'll put all that in the show notes too, but you can share your Instagram. Is it your Instagram handle? Shows you what I know.
Yeah. Or text. I can even put my phone number out there too. That's totally okay.
Awesome. Well, Jeremiah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And, there was about 4 or 5 really good messages that Jeremiah shared in here, audience. And so if you didn't get all 4 or 5, then go back and listen to it again, take some notes, send Jeremiah a question, and he'll answer those questions for you and help you get a little further along the path. So Jeremiah, again, I can't thank you enough for spending your time and sharing some incredible information with us.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to end this, audience, like we do every week, is with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what was shared on today's podcast. If you are looking to discover new wealth building strategies, then go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free courses and in-depth training videos designed to help you build wealth and break away from the herd. Click the link in the show notes to access the community today. Thanks again for listening.